Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lucy and I share videos on the topic of mind-body approaches that can be used to help long COVID, chronic fatigue syndrome and other mind-body conditions. I also offer coaching for people who are interested in applying this approach to themselves and need some support doing that. So today's video, I wanted to talk about how we can become aware of emotions we are not aware of. And there is no simple answer for this. I don't think it's a simple topic. I don't have a recipe that's going to say do X, Y, and Z and then you will be aware of your emotions. I wanted to talk about a few things that you can consider in relation to this that might be helpful. And it varies so much person to person, which is why I don't think we can formulate a recipe that works for everyone. I'm not a medical professional. This isn't medical or mental health advice. I'm just sharing things based on my own experience and what I've read in relation to a mind-body approach. If we think about repressing emotions, you have to think about why we might do that in the first place. And for many people, it's because they learned that it wasn't okay to be with emotions, or it wasn't safe to be with emotions, whether that's being with emotions by themselves or being with emotions in front of other people. So I think this is really important to consider because you might have really entrenched patterns that prevent you from getting in touch with your emotions, because for you it's about a sense of survival that you are not in touch with those emotions, because maybe as a child being in touch with those emotions meant that you would not be connected with your primary caregiver. We can have really well developed coping mechanisms for not being with emotions. And this varies person to person. Not everyone with a mind-body condition will have this issue. And also it can change over time, where this is something that becomes easier, or that this is something that one thing helps you at one point and another thing will help you at a different point. A few things that you can consider about becoming aware of emotions that you are not aware of. The first one is, do you feel safe paying attention to your body? And can you be in a regulated state with emotions? If you generally do not feel safe in your body, then it's less likely for an emotion to come up, because we need a sense of safety for the emotion to arise. So this might be something to think about. If you relate to this idea that actually, no, I don't really feel safe in my body, it doesn't feel safe to be with myself and ask the question, what emotions might I be feeling right now? Then this might be something to work on. And I'm not going to go into detail about how to generate feelings of safety in the body, but some quick examples could be grounding exercises, understanding why you don't feel safe, and also becoming aware of what it might mean to feel safe. So what would that feeling be like for you? What experiences in life bring out a feeling of safety, of connection? So that might involve some visualizations, like imagining a pet that you love, imagining a loved one that you have a lot of care for, or a friend that makes you feel very safe. Another thing to consider is if you have any stories around paying attention to emotions. So if you naturally avoid emotions, maybe there are specific reasons why. So you might be telling yourself, I can't handle what it is I might be looking at once I turn towards my emotions. It's not going to be something I will want to see, or I'll be able to handle, or if I notice an emotion, it will never go away. We might have some ideas like it's weak, or it means that I'm not strong if I have an emotion. It might make someone feel dependent on others. It might make someone feel out of control. So thinking about what your story is around emotions, what does it mean to you to experience an emotion. And that could be different in a situation where you're with other people versus when you're on your own. So what does it mean if you have emotions around a family member? Or what does it mean if you express emotions around a friend? What does it mean to you if you express emotions by yourself? So some people will have different patterns of when it feels safer to express emotions and when it does not. But knowing the story that might be there and might have been there for a very, very long time. So my story, I've noticed, or at least one of my stories, is I can't have something wrong with me. So having an emotion, even though, this doesn't make sense logically, I have a feeling that, if I have an emotion, that means there's something wrong with me, and having something wrong with me within my belief system since I was a child feels threatening, feels unsafe, does not feel okay, which means that accessing emotions for me can feel like it's not a safe space, which is why emotions might come into my body as symptoms and not as emotions. That's just an example, but it'll be different for different people. Another thing you can ask yourself is related to this idea of patterns. Are you struggling to notice emotions when you're with other people? So for instance, some people go into a caring mode, into a looking after others mode, into a mode where you are paying way more attention to other people's emotions and other people's states and making sure they're okay when you're with them, which means you disconnect from yourself and you don't feel your own emotions. And in some cases, this is just normal. But in other cases, it might be that this is a pattern for you where if you're living with someone who you are caring for, you are never able to be in touch with your own emotions because you are always with that person and you don't have enough space. And it's not to say that other person in the situation is the problem. It's more that that's a pattern for you and something to be aware of if you are trying to become more aware of your own emotions that you might be not so aware of. It could be that you're better at accessing emotions when you're with others compared to being by yourself, because with others there's a sense of safety that you don't have by yourself, and maybe the self-regulation of emotions is something that you're not used to or you haven't developed as much as co-regulation, where you can express an emotion in the company of others. Another thing to consider is your behaviour patterns on a day-to-day basis. So if you're trying to become aware of emotions that might be under the surface, think about the times that you are exercising too much, the times that you're working too much, the times that you're distracting yourself all day long. Those could be clues that there are emotions that you are not aware of and that might be helpful to become aware of. Knowing what is a way that we avoid emotions can be helpful, whether that's with people or whether that's on our own. Another thing to consider is how much perfectionism you're bringing into this task. So if you really want to find an emotion and you want to know why it's there and you want to know where it comes from in your past, and you want it then to be expressed and then disappear, that's a really idealized way of thinking about doing this work, and it might not work like that. So if you notice an emotion and you don't know why it's there, maybe you feel anger but you can't understand why you feel angry, I think the ambiguity is part of the process. And if you are telling yourself, I'm not doing this right, or I can't find the reason why the emotion is there, or I can't find the emotion itself, it can bring a sense of pressure into doing this that makes it harder. So I think also if you imagine looking for an emotion with a really intense focus. You know, you're going in with your magnifying glass and you're trying to find the emotion and you want to know what it is, and you feel under pressure because you want your symptoms to reduce. That level of pressure might generate a feeling of tension, of not feeling safe and relaxed in your body, which might mean there's less likelihood of an emotion coming up and showing itself. You know, this is a simplistic way of looking at it, but having a flexibility and an acceptance of what's there and what's not there, I think is helpful, knowing that sometimes you might not be able to find an emotion. So with this pressure that we can put on ourselves, we can actually fail to notice that there is an emotion right in front of us, like frustration, because there's a symptom there. So if you feel really pressurized around the situation, there is a chance that you're feeling frustrated or you're feeling annoyed that this process is going on and that it's not easy. So those are things to reflect on, that in itself is an emotion. If you have symptoms, you haven't had symptoms in a while, maybe there's some disappointment there. And these feelings are natural, but we can overlook them because maybe we're used to having that feeling on a somewhat regular basis. Another thing you could reflect on is patterns of anxiety that might actually be covering up an emotion. So you might have symptoms and you might also have anxiety on a day-to-day basis. And anxiety can be a really, really good distraction from other emotions because it can consume us. It consumes our thinking. We can start researching things. We can go in circles with our thoughts. We could worry about something that might happen in the future. This can be a really good way of us being removed from how we might feel if the anxiety wasn't there. So some questions you can ask yourself is, if this symptom or anxiety was not here, what would I be feeling right now? Another thing you could reflect on is whether talking in parts helps with becoming more aware of emotions. So maybe there's a part of you that wants to distance yourself from emotions, or that doesn't like admitting to feeling a certain way for whatever reason that might be. So by breaking it into parts and saying, well, one part of me feels anxious, or one part of me feels really sad about this situation, or angry, then maybe the part that has resistance towards that feeling can have a bit more space from it. So you're not saying, I feel angry, I feel frustrated, I feel upset. This is something that really, really helped me. So this is an area that I think is pretty interesting, but also quite complicated. And everyone has a different relationship with emotions. And for people who do repress emotions, there will be different barriers to becoming aware of emotions, because there's a reason in the first place that the repression is happening. That could take quite a while to work out and to figure out. And it might involve getting support from someone else, especially someone who understands this. ISTDP, or intensive short-term psychodynamic therapy, is a type of therapy that helps with becoming more aware of emotions. So if you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. If you'd like to join my Facebook group or follow me on Instagram, there are links in the description below. If you are struggling with applying a mind-body approach to yourself and you think the coaching would be helpful, there's a link to my website and a link to booking a call with me in the description. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.